Okay, so imagine this. A battlefield, right? Both sides have the exact same hardware. Same tanks, planes, troops, everything.
Okay.
But one side has advanced AI woven into every single decision, from spotting a target way off to figuring out how to take it out. What happens then?
Yeah, it's a completely different ballgame, a totally different kind of fight. The speed, the scale, I mean, just the sheer amount of information that the AI side can process,
Yeah.
it would likely just overwhelm the traditional force.
That hypothetical you just described, that's pretty much where things are heading, isn't it?
It really is. That's the future we're stepping into.
And that's exactly what we're going to explore today. Welcome, everyone, to the Deep Dive. So our mission here is simple. We've gathered a ton of source material, military reports, expert talks, even some really insightful YouTube analyses you shared.
Right.
And we're going to distill all that down for you. We want to unpack how artificial intelligence is, well, fundamentally changing modern warfare. It's way beyond just some autonomous drones now. It's hitting every single stage of military operation. We'll look at the cutting edge stuff, who the big players are pushing this change, and crucially, tackle those really tough ethical and geopolitical questions this whole thing raises.
Yeah, the big ones.
So by the end of this deep dive, the goal is for you to have a solid handle on AI and warfare, what it really means for global security, and maybe what questions we all need to start asking. Okay, let's unpack this.
Right. And maybe the best place to start, to connect this to the bigger picture, is understanding that AI isn't just some add-on. It's really reshaping the basic mechanics of how war is fought. And to get that, we need to talk about the kill chain.
The kill chain. Okay, sounds intense, like something out of a spy thriller. What is that, traditionally speaking?
Yeah, it does sound dramatic.
Yeah.
But traditionally, it's a pretty standard military process. Basically 5 steps: find, fix, target, engage, and assess.
Find, fix, target, engage, assess.
It's been the sort of backbone of operations for ages. You find the enemy, you fix their precise location, figure out the best weapon and how to target them, then you engage, and finally, you check, did it work? Assess the damage.
And this is where AI just blows the doors off, right? Because
Yeah.
it's changing every single one of those steps.
Exactly. Let's go back to that battlefield scenario. Both sides have sensors, drones, radar, whatever, looking into enemy territory, pulling in data.
Right, loads of data.
But on the AI side, that raw data, it gets instantly fed into computer vision software.
Computer vision, like the stuff that learned to recognize cats online.
Precisely. It's kind of amazing, really. Back around 2012, AI had that breakthrough recognizing cat images. Well, you can teach it to see a cat, you can teach it to see a tank.
Huh, never thought of it like that.
So the AI command center is processing all this visual data, literally seeing and identifying objects, tagging them. An algorithm pops up saying, okay, 90% probability that's a T-72 tank, here are the exact coordinates.
Which is a huge leap from the old way.
Oh, absolutely. Meanwhile, the traditional army, they've got people manually looking through images, plotting potential targets on a physical map, or maybe a basic digital one. It's slow. And crucially, that map often only exists in their specific command center.
But the AI-enabled army...
Their computers are automatically adding these findings to a shared cloud database. All their command centers see it instantly. Plus, their AI isn't just looking at images, it's fusing data from everywhere. Mobile phone signals, ship movements, even weird patterns like consumer retail activity.
Wow, so it's building a much richer picture much faster?
Much, much faster. Their maps just fill up incredibly quickly with potential targets in context.
Okay, so you found all these targets way faster, but the commander still has to decide, right? What to hit, what to use. Those are still complex choices.
They are complex, yes, but AI steps in there too. You have software platforms that take all that fused data and start making recommendations.
Recommendations, like what?
Like, here's the optimal way to destroy target X. And it considers everything: which planes are available, how much fuel they have, what ammo is best, even if the crews have had enough rest.
That's incredible. That sounds like the work of an entire planning staff.
It is. Instead of, dozens of mid-level officers working for days with spreadsheets and maps, the AI might spit out optimal plans in minutes, maybe seconds.
So while the traditional commander is still maybe plotting their first few targets,
the AI-assisted commander is looking at a prioritized list of targets generated by the software. Maybe it says, hit this ammo depot with artillery. We've confirmed these specific cannons are ready, stocked, and in range. The commander reviews, maybe tweaks something, taps a few buttons, and boom, the mission is underway.
the speed is just staggering.
And that speed carries over into autonomous systems too. Think about drones. Even if a human is flying it remotely, what happens if the signal gets jammed?
Uh-oh. loss of control.
Not necessarily anymore. Modern AI can allow that drone to basically take over, fly itself, use its onboard image library to lock onto the target it was given, and complete that final attack run autonomously.
Wow. So jamming becomes less effective?
Potentially, yes.
Oh,
That kind of resilient precision guidance across so many systems,
yeah.
that's a massive shift.
It really does sound like, I don't know, trying to play chess against a computer that sees millions of moves ahead while you're still figuring out where to put your knight.
That's a decent analogy, yeah.
So this compression of the kill chain, does it just make things faster? Or does it fundamentally change the kind of decisions a commander makes? Is their job easier or harder?
It fundamentally changes the nature of their job. The human shifts from, sifting through raw data points to evaluating these high-level AI-generated recommendations.
So less data crunching, more strategic oversight.
Exactly. But the cognitive load might actually increase in a different way. They're grappling with the implications of these incredibly rapid, complex suggestions, deciding whether to trust the machine. It means AI isn't just in the hardware anymore. It's the software, the algorithm. It's becoming the new brain of military power.
The new brain, that's a powerful way to put it. Okay, so that sets the stage. Let's dig into some of the key AI technologies and, where they're actually being used right now.
Right. And the applications are incredibly broad. If we start with, say, decision support and command systems,
Okay.
we've got things like the U.S. Project Maven that uses computer vision, like we discussed, to analyze drone feeds, pick out objects of interest.
Identifying tanks, vehicles, that sort of thing.
Exactly. Then you look at China. Reports suggest they've developed an AI battle commander, essentially a digital general for running complex war simulations.
A digital general. Wow.
And DARPA, the U.S. Defense Research Agency, has its ACE program, Air Combat Evolution. They're literally training AI to fly fighter jets and make split-second dogfighting decisions.
AI fighter pilots, that's something else. Does that bring up weird edge cases? Like, what if the AI learns something unexpected?
That's definitely a concern people raise: adaptability versus predictability. Then moving on to surveillance, reconnaissance, and targeting.
Yeah, you mentioned computer vision. What else?
Well, we've seen reports about Israel using AI systems. Names like Hapsora and Lavender have come up, apparently to help generate target lists, identify individuals or buildings, particularly noted during the recent Gaza conflict.
Right, that caused a lot of discussion.
And beyond visual data, there's AI-enhanced signal-to-signal intelligence. Algorithms digging through intercepted communications, looking for patterns, keywords, potential threats, much faster than humans could.
And fusing different types of imagery.
Yes, IMEMT imagery intelligence and geospatial intelligence. AI integrates satellite photos, drone footage, terrain data, map overlays, all to create this incredibly detailed, real-time picture of the battlefield.
Which then feeds into the next category, right? The actual autonomous systems.
Precisely. Autonomous and semi-autonomous systems. This is where you see things like loitering munitions, often called kamikaze drones, like the U.S. Switchblade or the Russian Lancet.
Those are the ones that can kind of hang around waiting for a target.
Exactly. They use AI guidance to hover, identify, and then strike, sometimes autonomously, in that final phase. We're also seeing more unmanned ground vehicles, UGVs.
Robots on the ground.
Yeah, for things like carrying supplies, detecting roadside bombs, maybe even armed patrols in some cases. And a really interesting area is swarm AI.
Swarms, like drone swarms.
Yeah, algorithms coordinating large groups of drones, dozens, maybe hundreds, to act as a single unit. They can overwhelm defenses, share information, and even complete missions if some units are jammed or shot down.
That sounds incredibly hard to defend against.
It presents a major challenge. And AI isn't just physical, it's digital too. Cyber and information warfare is another huge domain.
Right, defending networks.
Yes, AI-driven cyber defense is crucial now. Detecting unusual activity, predicting hacks, automating software patches to close vulnerabilities before they're exploited.
But also offensively.
Oh, definitely. Think about deepfakes. AI generating fake video or audio. We saw that alleged deepfake of President Zelensky telling his troops to surrender early in the Ukraine war. That's information warfare. AI is used for both creating and detecting that kind of manipulation.
And monitoring online sentiment.
Yeah, sentiment analysis, gauging public opinion, spotting disinformation campaigns spreading on social media, all driven by AI analyzing text and posts.
It feels like it touches everything, even the boring stuff, like logistics.
especially the quote-unquote boring stuff. Logistics and predictive maintenance are actually prime areas for AI efficiency gains. Smart supply chains using AI to predict demand, optimize routes.
So getting bullets and fuel where they need to be faster.
Exactly. And predictive maintenance, like we touched on. AI analyzing sensor data from engines, turbines, whatever, to predict failures before they happen. Keeping tanks, ships, planes ready to go. It's a massive advantage.
And you mentioned even human performance.
Yeah, it's pushing into human performance and medical AI. Things like monitoring a soldier's cognitive load through sensors. Are they too stressed, too fatigued? AI-powered triage systems in field hospitals to help medics prioritize the most urgent cases.
Wow.
And then there's the really cutting-edge, maybe slightly sci-fi stuff like neuro-AI interfaces,
Yeah.
experimental tech trying to link brain signals directly to control systems.
Okay, that's definitely out there.
Still very early days on that one. But finally, AI is totally changing simulation, wargaming, and training.
How so?
Generative AI can create incredibly dynamic, unpredictable training scenarios for commanders, far beyond pre-scripted exercises. And you can have virtual reality training where the AI controls enemy forces or civilians, adapting realistically to how the trainee behaves.
So much more realistic, challenging training.
Exactly. It's this holistic integration across literally every function that really underlines this shift towards what some are calling intelligentized warfare.
Intelligentized warfare. Okay. So we've seen the tech, how it's changing the how of war, but this isn't happening in a vacuum. It's about who has this power and what that means globally.
Absolutely. Which brings us squarely into the global AI arms race.
And China's role here is massive, right?
It's critical. Their DeepSeek.ai platform is really significant development now. It's not confirmed if it's being used directly in, kinetic operations yet.
But for planning and intelligence.
Hugely impactful there. It's transforming their strategic planning, their simulations, how they synthesize intelligence. And it's a classic dual-use technology civilian applications, military applications.
I read something staggering about its speed, generating thousands of scenarios.
Yeah, that report was eye-opening, generating 10,000 potential battlefield scenarios in just 48 seconds. Humans would take, 48 hours or more for something comparable?
It's an unbelievable force multiplier.
It really is. And this fits directly into China's broader strategy, military-civil fusion, or MCF. The idea is to blend civilian tech development with military needs, achieve strategic autonomy, especially in areas like advanced chips, and push the PLA towards this intelligentized warfare concept.
And DeepSeek is being used across different kinds of intelligence.
Pretty much all of them. Strategic intelligence analyzing geopolitical trends, operational modeling troop movements, tactical running those battlefield simulations, even cyber defense simulations, generating medical plans based on injury data.
Imagery analysis, too.
Oh, yeah. Analyzing satellite and drone imagery, geospatial intelligence, building knowledge graphs of terrain and infrastructure, even open source intelligence, using publicly available data to generate scenarios. It's the comprehensive integration that's key.
But that open source nature, that has risks, too, doesn't it?
Definitely. The dual-use dilemma is huge. Could it be misused? Could adversaries reverse engineer it? And it's already causing friction. The U.S. Navy and State Department reportedly banned its use over security worries. Plus, there are those allegations about it being used somehow to get around export controls on restricted U.S. chips.
So definite geopolitical heat there. How does the U.S. see all this?
Well, the context is pretty stark. You have Putin's famous line, "Whoever leads in AI will rule the world." And the White House itself called AI era-defining with major national security implications. There's a real sense of urgency.
But the U.S. has challenges too, right? Something about data.
Yeah, data supremacy. It's been called the U.S. military's potential Achilles heel. A lot of the data generated by U.S. military hardware historically hasn't been easily accessible, or it's just been discarded.
And in an AI war, data is critical.
It's the new ammunition, as one expert put it. You need vast, well-organized data sets to train effective AI.
And there's also been some friction with the tech industry.
That's another factor. A noted reluctance from some major U.S. tech companies to engage deeply with defense contracts, perhaps leaving a gap that others are trying to fill. But there are key U.S. and allied companies heavily involved now.
Right, let's run through some of those names. SpaceX is in the mix.
Yeah, through their Starshield division, they reportedly have a massive $1.8 billion contract for a network of surveillance satellites, global monitoring capability.
Okay. And established defense giants.
Absolutely. Northrop Grumman working on AI for missile defense, improving precision. BAE Systems providing AI solutions across the board. Land, sea, air, cyber. Lockheed Martin is a huge player, heavily invested in AI and machine learning.
What are they doing specifically?
Things like enabling tactical autonomy and programs for DARPA, like AI controlling drone swarms, and enhancing threat evaluation for the Navy's Aegis combat system on warships, making it smarter, faster.
Then there are some newer, maybe more AI-focused companies, like Endural.
Right, Palmer Luckey's company, their whole focus is different. It's about mass-producing relatively inexpensive autonomous systems. Things like their Roadrunner counter-drone system, concepts for autonomous fighter jets, even autonomous submarines.
Mass production of autonomy.
Exactly. Their Lattice AI platform is designed to integrate and coordinate potentially millions of these assets. They also took over the IVA's program, those augmented reality headsets for soldiers, trying to give soldiers robotic levels of situational awareness.
And Palantir, they're always mentioned in this space.
Yeah, Palantir software is known for its data integration capabilities. There are claims their systems allow military operations that once needed maybe 2,000 people to be done with just 20. Huge efficiency gains.
Wow, what about Scale AI?
Alexander Wang's company, they're big in data labeling, which is crucial for training AI. They've been using AI for things like battle damage assessment in Ukraine, analyzing satellite images to see what got hit, and detecting changes in imagery over time.
And virtual.
They focus on AI-powered training systems. Realistic marksmanship simulators, complex ballistic modeling, that sort of thing, improving soldier skills through AI.
So it's not just one big program. It's this whole ecosystem of companies, big and small, pushing different pieces of the AI puzzle.
Exactly. It seems like a move towards more decentralized, specialized AI capabilities, rather than one giant monolithic system.
And you mentioned Ukraine. That conflict seems to have become a real testing ground.
Tragically, yes, but it's undeniable. We're seeing what some call AI overmatch in action. Ukraine, despite being outnumbered in traditional terms, has used drones, AI-assisted targeting, and advanced image intelligence very effectively to counter a larger adversary.
So AI as an equalizer.
It certainly highlights how technology, especially AI, is changing the calculus of military power. Numbers still matter, but perhaps not as much as they used to if you have a significant technological edge.
Okay, so the tech is powerful, the race is on. But this leads us straight into the really difficult part, the ethics. We can do all this, but should we? And if something goes wrong, who's responsible? It feels like a minefield.
It absolutely is. And that brings us right to the heart of it. Accountability and moral responsibility. This is probably the thorniest issue.
Yeah. If an autonomous drone makes a mistake, a lethal mistake, who takes the fall? The programmer who wrote the code, the commander who sent it out. Is the machine itself somehow liable? Which sounds crazy.
It sounds crazy, but it's a question people are actually grappling with. AI systems, especially complex ones, can obscure that traditional chain of command. Pinpointing blame for an unlawful strike or civilian casualties becomes incredibly difficult.
Which connects directly to the whole human oversight debate, right?
Yeah.
The human in the loop.
Exactly. That principle is central to most ethical guidelines proposed so far. The idea that a human must always retain meaningful control, especially over decisions to use lethal force.
Because the fear that we take morality out of the equation.
That's a major concern. That warfare becomes purely algorithmic execution, devoid of human judgment, empathy, or the potential for mercy, reducing combatants and civilians to data points in an algorithm.
And how does this square with the existing laws of war, International Humanitarian Law, IHL?
That's another huge challenge. Key principles of IHL, like distinction telling combatants from civilians and proportionality weighing military advantage against civilian harm, require complex, contextual human judgments.
Can AI reliably make those calls in the chaos of battle?
That's the multi-billion-dollar question. Can you program nuance? Can you program ethical reasoning that holds up under pressure? Many experts are skeptical.
Plus, there's the data problem again, bias and data integrity.
Right. If the AI is trained on data that reflects existing biases, or if the data itself is flawed or incomplete.
It could lead to discriminatory outcomes, targeting certain groups unfairly, misidentifying civilians as threats.
Precisely. Leading to potentially unlawful killings, disproportionate harm to certain populations, and violations of fundamental human rights. Not to mention the potential for catastrophic errors if the input data is wrong.
And then there's the speed issue again, but in a different way.
Yeah.
Escalation and loss of control.
Yeah, imagine autonomous systems on multiple sides reacting to each other at machine speed. A perceived threat, maybe a misinterpretation by one AI, triggers a defensive response from another.
And things could spiral out of control before humans can even intervene.
That's a very real fear, especially in domains like cyber or space where reaction times are minimal. The speed of AI decision-making could simply outpace human diplomacy or de-escalation efforts. We could literally stumble into conflict.
And understanding why an AI made a certain decision, that's hard too, right? The transparency and explainability problem.
Often very hard. Many advanced AI systems operate as black boxes. We see the input, we see the output, but the internal reasoning process can be incredibly complex and opaque.
Which makes oversight difficult and legal review almost impossible.
Exactly. How do you trust a system you don't understand? How do you hold it accountable after an incident if you can't determine why it did what it did?
So all these challenges, what does it mean for global norms? Are we just heading into a free-for-all arms race?
That's the danger. Without agreed-upon international rules or regulations for autonomous weapons systems, there's a real risk of a destabilizing technological arms race. Everyone feels compelled to develop these systems because they fear their adversaries will. It could lower the threshold for starting conflicts.
Have there been attempts to regulate this? I know the U.S. DoD put out some ethical principles.
Yes, in 2020, principles like responsible, equitable, traceable, reliable, governable. It was seen as a positive step, acknowledging the issues. But critics quickly pointed out that they're guidelines, not binding rules, and they lack clear enforcement mechanisms.
So more of a statement of intent than a hard constraint.
Largely, yes. And internationally, progress on treaties governing autonomous weapons has been very slow, blocked by major military powers.
Okay, let's tackle the big one directly then. The killer robots debate. The core argument against them is always about human control, right? A human must make the final call.
That's the central pillar for many critics, yes. The argument that taking a human life is a uniquely moral decision that should never be delegated to a machine.
But the sources we looked at offer some nuance there. Shashank Joshi, for instance, had an interesting take.
He did. He argued that while everyone focuses on the final pull-the-trigger moment, the really consequential step might actually be earlier when the system identifies something as a target in the first place.
So the labeling is key.
Right. And he questioned whether a commander just passively clicking approve on an AI's recommendation without deeply understanding how the AI works, its limitations, its potential biases, whether that truly constitutes meaningful human control.
So true control isn't just veto power, it's informed engagement, knowing when to trust the AI and when to doubt it.
That's his point. It requires a commander to really understand the tool they're using, not just treat it as an infallible black fox that serves up targets.
Okay, that adds a layer. But then you have someone like Palmer Luckey from Anduril who comes at it from a completely different angle, more about inevitability.
Yeah, his argument is quite different. He basically says this idea of humans building tools where the decision to use violence is separated from the tool's design. That's not new at all.
Like landmines.
Exactly. Or even ancient pit traps. Or modern anti-ship mines. You set them up, and they act based on predefined triggers without direct human intervention at the moment of engagement. He even points to things like the Aegis system on U.S. warships, which has modes capable of autonomously detecting and firing on incoming threats.
So his point is, we've already crossed this threshold.
He argues the Pandora's box of autonomous functions in weapons was opened a long time ago, and we can't realistically unopen it. Moreover, he suggests that refusing to use AI, especially if AI could actually perform better than humans in certain situations.
Better.
For instance, if an AI could more reliably distinguish a civilian vehicle, like a school bus, from an armored personnel carrier in bad weather or confusing conditions, potentially reducing civilian casualties, Luckey argues that choosing not to use that capability could actually be an abdication of responsibility.
That's a provocative framing. Not using the tool is morally questionable if it saves lives.
It flips the ethical argument. Plus, he points out the sheer scale of modern potential conflicts often makes that idea of a human individually remote controlling every single weapon system impractical.
Okay, that's definitely a strong case for why this tech is developing and why some see it as necessary, maybe even morally preferable in some scenarios. But does it fully erase the unease about AIs making life and death choices? Where is that line between a preset mind and an AI actively learning and choosing targets?
That's still the crux of it, isn't it? It fundamentally shifts the debate. It's maybe less about whether AI will be used in war that seems almost certain, and more about how we use it responsibly. How do we build in safeguards? How do we ensure human judgment evolves alongside the technology?
Which brings us, I think, towards wrapping up this deep dive. We've covered a lot of ground from how AI is revolutionizing every aspect of warfare, that whole kill chain compression,
Right, down to logistics and training.
to the global race for AI dominance, looking at China, the US, the key companies involved,
And that crucial role of data.
and finally, wrestling with these incredibly complex ethical dilemmas: accountability, human control, bias, escalation. The list goes on.
It's a lot to take in. And the clear takeaway seems to be that, like it or not, no major nation seems willing to hit the brakes on integrating AI into their militaries.
It feels inevitable. The future seems to be humans and AI working together somehow to wage war.
That appears to be the trajectory.
So the final thought for you listening: given this reality, given that this AI integration seems set to continue, how do we possibly ensure that the human wisdom, the foresight, the ethical grounding of the people making decisions about these systems keeps pace with the technology itself? That seems like the race we really need to win.
A crucial question.
And what responsibility do you have just in understanding this new world that's unfolding? Something to think about. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.